but I was on mute, and it was all the uncles and Bob Saget at a Jewish wedding reception. So I had to compete with Danny Tanner doing the horror and stuff, and I just watched every set of eyes just drifting up.
Oh yeah, there's nothing worse than that.
I couldn't compete with that. I still can't.
There were certain rooms that there was these one-nighters that they would just send me to over and over because no one else would do it or I'd get canceled to get there. And I remember this one room that I worked at like every 3 weeks. They had shows like Friday and Saturday, and every 3 weeks I'd be there either Friday or Saturday. And they knew my act so well, like I'd do it, and they'd go, I'd be doing like my high school stuff or whatever, and they go, "Oh, you missed one," and I'd be, "Oh no, I dropped that line because it wasn't where When
I started, I was like right out of high school, and I wasn't even a month into it. And this guy named Tommy Cox, who was a comic, and he booked rooms. So we go to Niagara Falls, New York, and the gig pays $10, and I'm excited because I'm like, "Wow, I'm getting paid to do stand up."
Yeah.
And we get there. He's seen my act a few times, and he brings me, "Kid, you know that one bit you do? You're a little man on the totem pole, so I'm doing that bit tonight." And I thought that's just how it worked. Like if the older comics or more established could take your material and do it on stage. So he does my bit, and then at the end of the show, he comes over and says, "Yeah, kid, we didn't really get what we needed at the door. I'm gonna have to short you $5." And I learned later on that he did this just about every show, but he would short every comic $5 or $10, and then he would go buy heroin.
Wow. That's awful.
Hell of a drug.
But I had a friend who was doing a show where he was Asian, and he used to make fun of John Wayne for being racist, and he would really go after John Wayne. Mm-hmm. So one night, this Marine in the crowd got mad as his John Wayne material. So all the comics were all in the green room. We have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
We're just in the green room, and this waitress comes running in, and she goes, "They've got one of your guys."
They've got one? That's not what you want to hear.
What does that even mean? So you go out, and the Marine is trying to attack him on stage, and he's holding him off with the mic stand.
Nice.
Like just pushing him. But I just love that they've got one of your guys.
They've got one of your guys.
Thing. It's like, what?
It happened again.
I remember the first place I ever got paid to do comedy was a place called the Comedy Womb in Lyons, Illinois.
The Comedy Womb?
Yeah, where comedy is born is what they say.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's awful.
That is awful. Please.
You felt like you needed to wash out the placenta when
That's
some of the shows
amazing.
were over. But anyways,
I mean, I've done the Comedy Uterus, and that's a pretty good one.
All right.
but the Comedy Womb.
Comedy
actually,
vulva.
there were the guy had pictures like Jay Leno had played there in the '70s, but on his way up, people like that were there. But anyways, the thing was, his rule was that he had to have 7 people in the audience or he couldn't have a show. So he would drive almost an hour to get there because it was in the weird corner of Chicago suburbs. And then you'd be stuck going, "Oh, please, I hope 7 people show up." And then some comics were like so pissed off, they were just like, "God, I hope we don't have 7 people show up." But I wanted those 7 people because I wanted my paid gig, you know. And anyway, it was just a degrading experience to start your career with.
Where was
Still
that?
not past
When or where?
Where is the Comedy
It
Womb?
was in Lyons, Illinois, near Berwyn, 1996 or so. It closed.
Did
shortly
Elmer
after.
Fudd name it the Comedy Womb?
I know.
It was above a restaurant that was like some weird, like big. I don't remember what type of food it was, but they had you would cross like a little like a bridge over a little bit of water, and a night suit was there, some sort of medieval themed restaurant below it, and then you go upstairs to the Comedy Womb.
It's not the sister restaurant of the Comedy Stool.
Oh, gross! Yeah, no, but there was also that's awful. But there was the MC was this guy named Orlando something, and it was like this black dude who was like had a giant fro, and this is like mid-90s. He was like about 20 years too late with his whole look, and he had this like brown polyester suit always and a big pimp hat, and he would always say jokes like, "I don't like cocaine, but I like the way it smells," you know. And then the audience would be
Prior
like,
joke.
well, then he was ripping them off.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've heard that.
Well, first of all, there's a brother named Orlando. Okay,
There you go.
I mean,
There you go.
Orlando Jones, or whatever, right?
the afro, all of that come. I mean, if your name's Orlando, I mean, think about it. How many brothers do you know? Orlando.
Jones and Calrissian.
Exactly. Orlando Jones and Calrissian. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, Brian, I know this might not be in your milieu.
Sure. What is?
Do you have any stories about like guests on the show being a handful?
Oh, guess on Conan being a handful? None that I can keep my job with discussing.
fair
Can
you know?
you describe some behavior without naming the artist and still have it be funny?
Well, every once in a while there'd be somebody who would be have like a bottle of vodka in their dressing room, and sometimes it's funny where it's a big star, and you're like, what are you nervous about? They're going to love you, and it's funny how you get. It's out of their comfort zone. You know, they can go play a character and they can do this amazing thing that you would go, how can anyone do that? You can be on stage naked and do a show, but just coming out as yourself on a talk show and ask it's interesting what freaks people out and what doesn't. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I think it's.
But nobody trashing the green room or anything.
No. I mean, we've had bands that we like, they're getting high in there or whatever. But there's no real need to trash our green rooms. I don't think, anything like that.
Have you ever heard about a star that you could name from who did bad behavior on another talk show?
Oh, I did hear one thing. We had somebody on some singer on, and someone I worked with, she brought her friends into the green room, and the singer had a restraining order against her.
Against who?
Against the woman. This is my friend. The
against
woman.
Conan.
It's like he had a restraining order against the stalker, and the woman brings the stalker into the which was kind of hilarious. And then for a while they were like, okay, you can't bring any guests, you can't bring any friends into the green room. So for like a year, because this one woman brings a stalker to the singer, it was kind of funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, how about you joke a lot about being married and being a dad. Was there any really embarrassing thing that ever happened? Like, say, without obvious wedding night jokes, I would say any embarrassing thing that happened like on your wedding day. Anything go wrong with the ceremony or with your kid's birth? Anything like that?
Well, when my wife and I went to Spain for a honeymoon, and from whatever the breakfast, I got food poisoning from the breakfast that morning at the hotel in Boston.
First day.
So we have our breakfast. We had our wedding night. We had our breakfast, and then we get on the plane, and I start getting sick.
Oh no.
And violently ill, and to the point where I can't even get up to go to the bathroom anymore. Like I can't, whatever. And I'm so sick, and the stewardess comes over. She's like, we have somebody with a wheelchair that's going to come and get you when we land.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, I don't need that. And they're like, oh, you do. And so there's 300 people on the plane, and it's just the rumor spreads that the groom is sick, So we land, and I have to wait for everyone to get off the plane. And so 300 people walk by me. How you doing? You doing okay? You doing better? Whatever. And I'm
Mazel tov.
so mortified.
Mazel tov. Congratulations.
And then they bring the guy in there with the wheelchair, and he puts me on there. And my wife, who's 5'1", and 105 pounds. Oops.
Let's say 100 pounds.
Yeah, let's say 100 pounds. She's got to carry the luggage,
no.
whatever, So they carry, and then. I can't leave the hotel room. So my wife gets this doctor, and he comes, and he's an Arab guy who's Arabic is his first language, and then Spanish, and then speaks a little bit of English. But he said food poisoning, which we kind of knew. But he, so I'm there for 3 days. Like I can't leave. My wife would go out sightseeing here on our honeymoon, and they had this one English-speaking channel, and it would show infomercial. And it's like there's the sunglasses. And then there's this one for this thing you attach to your hose, and you can wash your car for a half hour.
Right.
And I'm just and then finally at 6:30 at night, Remington Steele came on, and it was like, oh, thank God.
Oh yes.
And I'd never seen Remington Steele, and it was a terrible.
Thank God for Remington
yes,
Steele.
I was like, please, a TV show. Thank God. I couldn't. The next day, I'm like, when's Remington Steele gonna get on? But I'm there for and it's that kind of thing where you come home for your honeymoon, and people are like, how was it? And it's like, oh, well, I, didn't leave the hotel room for 3 days. And they're like, oh, you newlyweds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that sounds pretty awful there.
It was.
My car's never been cleaner, though.
So, well, I think that basically, is there any other like horror story we haven't touched on that you were thinking, I think I'm
really
gonna
I
share
did have one funny thing.
Plumb the depths of your life.
Well, I had
Yeah,
a funny
a
thing
big
one
finale.
time where I opened for Seinfeld in Worcester, Mass. This
That's
is
great.
years ago, and
So we'll move $1 for that. Okay.
the show had just his show had just started. So we're at the Worcester, the new auditorium. There's 4,000 people a show. He draws a great crowd. It's so exciting. 2 shows. It goes great. So the next day, my wife and I are out, and we come home, and there's a message on our answering machine that says, "Brian, this is ABCTV calling." And we're like, this is my big break.
Oh.
And he was the name of the place where I brought my VCR to be fixed.
For God's sake.
They're like, your VCR is ready.
Oh, no.
Swear to God. And I told Jerry that story that night, and he howled. It was
That's hysterical.
yeah.
Wow, man.
And here you sit.
And here I sit.
Yeah, at the height of your career. if you could see the glamour with Radio Titans
Sure.
affords its guests, you'd be amazed. Right, so I think we're just about out of time. Anything you want to plug? Obviously, Conan is on
Sure.
11 p.m.
On TBS. And
Yes.
you could follow me on Twitter at Kiley Noodles. And that's my Twitter handle. That's
Kylie Noodles? How'd you come up with that? Pretty awful.
Conan makes fun of me for my skinny legs, so he's always making fun of my noodles.
Wow.
Legs.
Okay.
I don't see him doing a lot of bench pressing.
No, absolutely. Who's he to talk? Which he'll admit freely. But he riffs on everybody, so that's my. I can have worse riffs, so I'll take it.
Awesome. And let's see, Kevin, anything you want to plug, or how people can find you? Anything?
I will next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And John, one more time.
And again, you can find me on Twitter, John B. Moody, at Twitter, on Instagram, JBMoody716, and of course, Facebook and the Dear John podcast.
Right.
Awesome.
Yes.
And I'm Carl Kozlowski, and just go to carlkozlowski.com. Probably the best thing I got there is look up some funny articles of mine that I've written over the years, kind of Hunter S. Thompson type stuff up there. And then also just a final tally of how much we've raised for hurricane relief. A whopping $15.50.
Nice.
We're so
I
brave.
will be sending this. We'll post a photo, and because we're going to brag about this
We're part
loud
of the
and
solution
loud and
card.
loud. Yeah, so post a photo on our. We're going to be media pages by the time this show airs, and I hope those people can use it well. $15.50 from the bottom of our hearts. Till next time. I'm Carl Kozlowski, and my co-host
Kevin Corcoran.
and this has been Oh Man, That's Awful on Radio Titans. Thanks.